Damn, Ingenious made the beat. Yo, welcome to another episode of the Coach Life Podcast Radio. I'm, of course, your host, the Prince of Positivity, Coach Steve. Join with me, as always, my co-pilot, partner in crime, Coach Luna. How we doing, Brody?
Eager and sore as can get.
I bet you are, sir. I bet you are. I bet you are. Too shy, but man, an accomplishment, sir. A
For
massive
sure, for
accomplishment.
sure.
If anybody
Yes.
follows Coach Luna on Instagram, a man tried to get a 15 and a half piece
Tried to go
a
crazy.
run going. And we got 13.25,
13.76.
13.76. That's pretty damn good. I'm gonna just say that. Just leave that right there. That's pretty good.
Hmm.
I already know
Appreciate it,
by the end of
appreciate
this
it.
quarter, bro, you gonna blow the 15 out the water.
Oh yeah, got to. Got to.
Because we just keep updating that capacity, keep upgrading that capacity, yo.
Yes, sir.
CEO, founder of the Coach Life Podcast and brand about building your brand. Coach Wash, how we doing, bro?
Man, bless, full.
You had a busy week too.
Man, it's all been with God. So it can't get no better than that.
You ain't never lied, man. You ain't never lied. What are we talking about today? This is a very interesting one. Luna, you kind of already alluded to it a little bit. We're talking about systems. We're talking about systems. Good, bad, and different. We're talking about systems. What kind of systems are we talking about, Coach Luna?
True. Every system, the systems that we've way I could probably put it, it's like the coach's beliefs and habits that we've kind of all gotten accustomed to
Mm-hmm.
and not really questioned or looked at to see whether or not it was efficient or even necessary.
I love how you put that because we're going to touch on a couple different types of systems. We might not have time to touch on all of them. This might be a two-parter, but when talk about family systems, talk about economic systems, we talk about religious systems, government systems, educational systems, health systems,
Mm.
social hierarchies. We can go in the
There's a
justice
lot.
system. We can go, there's a lot of systems, corporate systems, work systems, media systems, information systems. We can go into a lot of different areas of different types of systems that are out there right now. I want to first and foremost kind of go into what I think will probably end up being like more of our cornerstone when we talk about systems, like the psychology behind some of the systems, why people stay in certain systems. So let's, before we dive into that particular section and give you that preview, let's back it up a little bit. Let's back the train up a little bit. Let's talk about the base form systems that we all have found ourselves in growing up. Coach Wash, when we talk about family systems, I want you to think about your upbringing. Coach, I want you to do the same thing as well because I'm going to ask you the same question. In your guys' upbringing, has there been a person in your family that is responsible for the man that you are today?
Man. Um, Persons, people. Yeah, it really was a system. I would say probably the person that probably kept me in a line, uh, and not venture too far off the rail and become another statistic, I would probably say I talk about my grandpa a lot. Even my father had his role, but my mom, uh, her poise, her patience, her work ethic, she was every piece, right? She was the hard worker. She worked full time. I don't even think they make women like this no more. She worked full time. She cooked. Everybody joke about the young ladies don't cook these days. She still cooked the meal after a full day of work, getting up early to drive us to a safe area to go to school because we weren't going to any of the schools in our community. So we drove to the next town over. All my Chicago people. I was in Oak Park, lived in K Town, drove to Oak Park every morning um, to make sure I got a good education and was safe in doing so. The talks that we had, she constantly making sure she understood where my mind was at with everything going on around us, making sure that I was stable. We got a lot of vices and just everything under the sun going on in the neighborhood, making sure I would still stand on the right side of the fence and taking in all the positive stuff she was feeding me. Yeah, I would definitely say huge part of the patience and poise that people see in me, my ability to deal with a lot and still stay focused and not lose it.
Coach Luna, for you, was there a person or persons for you that helped shape you into the man you are today?
Persons for sure. My mom, sister, my aunt, grandmother, my stepdad. I mean, the list could go on forever. But the thing that I would like to like really just focus on more with like, um, my mom, my grandmother was the reason that we were able to start getting into the United States. When my grandmother met my grandfather, God bless his soul, Noble Poole, and while he was out in Honduras for whatever reason, while he after World War II, um, that's how they met. Then my mom, long story short, bro, my whole family is immigrants. Um, so that alone, my mom was raised on a farm. My grandmother, same thing. They were the hands at a farm.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to be the firstborn here in America, um, a lot of the grit, a lot of the grind, a lot of the sacrifice, a lot of the dedication, a lot of name every word that's synonymous with those things. I've seen all of it. But the one thing that I always just always seen hold true was the amount of love that they just gave
Mm.
consistently and without the need of reciprocation. And that to me has always been glaring because in the American society, it's very hard to be a person who wants to continuously give and not feel like you're getting the and not feel like you're getting enough back. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Mm.
It's America's already built enough to take so much from you that you even thinking about wanting to give more is almost borderline insane because it's like you don't even got that much to give. You know what I'm saying? And growing up in the trailer park, then going and finally getting our first time getting in the house with a roof, like you know what I'm saying, getting all those things, like it was the steps that I seen my mom take from working at Fiesta and decorating cakes to getting her first desk job to becoming, one of the head financial people at this same job, knowing where she came from, I learned the value of understanding that the limits that we put ourselves are the limits that we believe are our ceilings really can move. The
They
goalposts can move. but are you willing to do what's necessary? My mom was driving from I-45 North all the way to Alameda, which is, Coach Wash, I seen how you responded. That's a good hour drive. She did this drive for a few years after she left Fiesta because she seen the opportunity to take another job, but it was going to require her to drive an extra hour when Fiesta was right up the street, 5 minutes. But it required her to have to do something different. And she did it. And, now she's been with that company for over my whole time, since still now to this day. So over almost 30 years, she's been with this company. And we're talking about the same woman that was hopping in the back of cars just to try to get around the Honduras to try to get to the next spot, to the next stop, because there was no cars. You know what I'm saying? I love my grandmother. She would tell you right now, my grandmother has never driven a car a day in her life. That's how farm raised my family has been.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing those things, bro, I've had so much gratitude because I see what it takes to leave the trailer park that we grew up in as children to neighborhoods, and then this neighborhood, and then that type of neighborhood. And it's just like, bro, the sky is really the limit, bro. And then it's past the sky after that. You know what I'm saying? Like
totally is. You hit something, and I wanna dissect this a little bit more, because you started talking about initially seeing a change, right? Seeing a level progression, right? For a lot of people, a lot of people, they don't get a chance to see a lot of level progression in their house at an early age.
Coach, I want to rebuttal that. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to finish what you were saying. But
Please.
I'm 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I have the capacity at 3 or 4 years old to understand my mom is leveling up? I have been able to look back and see what has gone. I'm able to look back at that trail that that trailblaze, that everything that she blazed. I'm able to look back and see that. So my thing with everything you about to say, I guarantee you, there's people in everybody's life that they can cling on to and say somebody did this, but you're not looking at it. You may think where you're currently at ain't good enough, so therefore you don't see how far you've already come.
So, Coach Luna, do you think that there may be some instances where that individual may not necessarily, they may see those leveling up type situations, but it's not close in proximity. So because it's not close in proximity, I can't quote unquote leech off of some of that success, right? You are able to naturally leech off of that success because mom is literally that close, right? You can see mom's progression. Same thing with you, Lloyd. You can see mom's progression. You can see dad's progression, right? You guys being that close to it, you may be able to see it. There are a lot of people out there right now that didn't see mom make that level progression, right? Because mom either may not have been there. But some of us, and I know a lot of my friends where dad may not have been there, right? Where I didn't have dad there to really show me that level up progression. But somebody there set a system in place and you were able to blindly follow that system because they gave you a blueprint. And it usually starts with your family system.
It
Usually.
does. It does. So here's another how though, Coach. Think about it. Think about how many times we talked about David Goggins, for example.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a family member to either one of us,
Nope.
but the ability to tap into the things that he talked about has made such a profound effect on millions of readers around the world that they can say that they looked up to this man.
Right.
In some instances, not even some, in a lot of instances, he was able to impact me because it made me have to change my mind of, one, the grace that I give myself, and two, how much I really doubted myself. And I
I
think
love, yep,
there's a lot of power behind those things in learning to read about some of these people. Go look at, I guarantee you there's somebody that everybody kind of looks up to. Even if
absolutely.
it's if there's some music that you listen to or there's something that you watch, there's somebody. Go look at their stories. A lot of these success stories, you'd be surprised. They all start very similar.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They all have similar systems that they all come from, whether it's your family, your job, your beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
your habits. All of these are systems. I guess the bigger question is that are you using these systems to help you or are you trapped in these systems? Now, before we answer that question, because I'm gonna give you that one, Coach Lloyd, to answer that question. But one thing that we did not do that we have to do is define a system, right? So the basic definition of a system is, and I had to look this up because I went to Webster's on this one because I didn't want to give you my interpretation of it, right? We want to go to Webster's, get you some actual factuals. A system is a structure framework that creates order, predictability, and control in different aspects of life. I heard somewhere, I can't remember what movie this was. Um, I know it had to be like, I think it was in like Spartacus. Um, I know it's not only said in Spartacus, but I remember hearing this in Spartacus. Said if you want to control people, control the systems that they live in. And think about the Roman Empire. What did they do? They controlled systems. It was very systematic on how they controlled everything.
Whole framework came from off the Roman
100%.
Empire. That's exactly
100%,
what we're
right?
doing.
Exactly. We were repeating past mistakes, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of past mistakes. So I want to challenge you guys really quick. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Either one of you guys can answer this. I want you to think about systems that everyone is a part of. Family, work, religion, government, education, doesn't matter. Just think about the systems. Which ones do you feel like we follow blindly? And which ones do you feel like we have a tendency to challenge more? And why do we have a tendency to challenge them more?
Who want to go first? Me or you?
Go ahead,
You
coach.
go first.
Go ahead.
To me,
Yeah.
cultural systems. And right now, the system that has,
Blindly following cultural systems.
yep,
Yeah.
because the culture continues to mold and bend to where the foundation ain't even really, where's the foundation now? It
So
can move here, it can go there, it can go here.
it's very
It's
malleable.
extremely, there you go. That's the
Hmm.
word. It's very malleable. And here's the problem: the people that are going and doing all the shifting and molding don't necessarily have the best interests of the majority of the people. It's become a system that's literally just predicated on maximum potential of capital.
Yeah.
And with that, that's why it's written that the love of money is the root of all evil,
Hmm.
because there is no true love in the essence of blindly chasing all capital goals, because there's no grace behind that. Because I don't care about whether how you come out of this, how this lyric impacts you, or how this food made what it may do to your gut biome. I don't care about any of that. I care about mass production. I care about the how however many records it sells. Those are the only things we care about. And as long as those things are cared about, the effects that it has on Steve, the effects it has on Coach Luna, the effects that it has on Coach Wash doesn't matter. We know that what it's going to do. So we're going to go ahead and do these things, and we're not even going to let our children eat those things. We're not going to let our children listen to those things, but we're going to keep letting the 98% of y'all continue to go ahead and fight all the time.
I want to put a pin in something that you just said, right? Um, Make sure you remember this, Coach Luna, because Coach Wash, I want to give you the opportunity to answer the same question. But Luna, I want you to remember when you made the comment of not letting people not participating essentially in the same things that we are that they're pumping out. Because I want to go back onto something for that. Um,
Red and
and
blue pill.
exactly. And also, I want to kind of dissect the fact that we also made mention that it's malleable. This culture that we're currently in right now is very malleable. I want to kind of go back on that really quick because that's
Please do.
yes, because we got to dissect that.
We
Coach
can
Wash,
literally just talk about hip hop.
exactly. Coach Wash, what system do you feel like? I know I think you agree that culturally
Yeah,
that's probably the system that we follow the most blindly. Which one do you feel
yeah.
like we challenge the most, and why do you feel like we challenge that one the most?
Um, it's tough because I think even the ones that we challenge the most, we still follow blindly.
Okay, give
Um,
me an example.
Government systems.
I figured you would
That's
go there.
perfect. That's actually a
I figured
perfect.
you would go there.
Yeah, I mean we follow it blindly and but we
Openly
challenge it.
criticize all the time.
We criticize. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting to me because the following blindly is as long as you're living and operating within the system itself, you're not truly challenging it, but you're complaining. You're not really challenging it. And the ones that do challenge it, they end up martyrs, which back to culturally is a problem because the leaders that actually led us culturally challenge the government systems and they died. And we're short on those today.
You're on a lot of those today.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely government. But I feel like the government is pretty much it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz to me. He's sitting behind the curtain, um, just manipulating things, and we got all these smoke and mirrors going, and they can actually tap into whatever system they need to tap into to control the culture and control us
Remember that
because we
pen, Coach
follow it
Luna?
blindly and we don't ask questions.
We got to go back to this now because you just said it too, Coach Wash. We're going to talk about the malleability. Is that a word? It is today. We
Gonna
use
be
it
one
today.
today.
One
Yeah.
today. One today. The malleability, the pliability. There you go. The pliability of culture. I have a question, and I'm glad you both answered it the same way because I want to hear your perspective on this answer now. When we talk about there being so much pliability in culture and how certain people at the top shape the culture, right? If we live in a culture that has so much change and there is no real foundation or has not been a real foundation, why is it so hard for people to change? When
Ooh.
culture changes on a regular basis and people have to keep up with the times, right? Keep up with the Joneses, keep up with the times, right? My son told me about some skivvy toilet Ohio or something like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sure, those are things now. So again, if there's so much pliability in the culture, why is it so hard for people to change?
Now I got a
Coach,
question for that question. What when you say hard for people to change, like elaborate? Are you asking why is it hard for them to change for the better in general? Like,
period, I
Well,
guess, huh?
well, period,
We could
because we
dissect
could
both of it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Because
yeah, because
we can change our vernacular and say
Cause
Skibbity, Ohio,
cause
instead
I
of
was
saying that's whack.
cause
Right?
I was gonna say this. Look at the adults today and look at the kids. Okay, so and I want to just be as simple as possible. Look at the current trend of what people are wearing again. Baggy
Mm-hmm.
clothes, baggy jeans, baggy this. Who else do you see doing wearing these things? Grown 38, 39, 37-year old celebrities doing the exact same thing. So people do change,
Mm-hmm.
right? They
Mm.
change, but they don't change.
Yeah.
So that's why the cycles always recycle and continue, and you got the same things happening over and over. So the same people that were dressing the same way 20 years ago are dressing the same way 10 years from now, 10 years from now, 10 years from now. It's the red and blue pill from the Matrix.
Yeah.
You'll
Yeah.
never question whether or not you are literally being a follower of the culture if you don't step back and step out and just look at your freaking closet. Hype beast. You got nothing but Nike. You got nothing but Jordans. You got everything that everybody says you need to go get. You got. Why? You got the Essentials Fear God hoodies and all that. That's the number one thing out right now. I asked the kid, how much is that? He said 150. I said, that's going to stay where it's at. $150 for a hoodie, and all y'all got this on.
Yeah. That
That's
that
another
goes
thing. That's
that
another
goes
part
That's
of
another.
the
It's
culture.
another change that we
I
got to talk about.
said, well,
Because I'm
one
talking about
one
this
one
culture.
thing
I'm
they
talking about
do
these
is
kids walking around with these baggy jeans,
yeah,
Balenciaga shoes, and $150 hoodie.
yeah.
But y'all, like, our priorities are completely screwed.
Well, I would well that's always been an issue. That's definitely uh you know what's funny? One system is being challenged with the example you gave. What we learned in economics about supply and demand, because it's like all y'all want this and we still paying $150. Usually I was taught that it took the price will only stay up. There's plenty of supply, there's plenty of demand. Eventually the price will start to drop,
That
but
ain't happening right now
that's
Mm-mm.
because
challenged.
people are willing to pay the price just so
Yeah,
that they can say it's an exclusive wear. And don't even question that there's 100 kids in this class and 40 of y'all got this Fear Essential hoodie on. How is this exclusive when everybody's dressed the same?
yeah,
How is anything exclusive if everyone's doing the same?
yeah.
And bro, that epiphany came to me when I started going further and further along in this health journey with the amount of drinking that's acceptable within our cultures.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I'm like, time out. Back in high school, we used to, what was considered lame? What was considered this? Or what was considered the, like back in the day, it was because you were different, right?
Mhm.
Now everybody does the exact same thing, and you're lame if you want to chill at the house, slow down in life, choose your health as a priority, choose your relation, like you choose to nurture these things. That's the new lane. And it's like,
The new
Oh,
lane is
pretty,
being
but
different.
it was it's still being different though.
It's still being different.
right,
It's so
Still being
nothing's
different.
changed.
exactly.
Yeah,
So that's,
But
but that's what I I guess kind of like misconstrued with how I was trying to picture it. But
yeah,
like the 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 thing that's popular right now is literally what's poisoning us the most.
hmm
but that's the common trend. It's just the poison changes.
And I think, and this is my crazy conspiracy. I haven't had one of these in a while. I think it's programmed from the day that we get, the day we're able to crack one of these open, and we're drinking something out of this. It eventually turns into a beer can 20 years from now. The pixie
Yeah,
sticks eventually turn into a cigarette.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like
they
the
they they
they
they
they
groomed it that
know
way for a
you.
while. Again, I'm pretty sure all of us remember the
Oh, I
candy
remember the candy
cigarettes.
cigarettes. The candy
And
cigarettes.
and and I'd be pissed off if I got the candy cigarettes with just the white stick and it wasn't the actual like paper that's wrapped in powdered sugar that you can go
Facts.
blow out where it got a little bit of
Yeah.
smoke to come out
So
of it.
you get what I'm
So like,
saying? It's like
right.
they do little slick stuff to try to like appease us, and then knowing 10 years from now what it's gonna do. That's the thing that I don't think we give enough credit to these slick devils, is that they not worried about your tomorrow. They
No,
worried about your 15 from now. They worried about your 20 from now. They're
We
not
worry about
worried
the
about
tomorrow.
you.
it's the
Yeah,
slow
they're not
game.
worried about you popping bottles at the club this weekend.
It's the slow game.
They know 15 years from now you're gonna be completely drowned in debt. That you never gonna be able to get out of that.
Yeah.
They go have your fun. That's why you think they go ahead and lend you the money so easily. Don't worry, we're gonna get that back. Everything that you
With
own,
interest.
we're gonna get that back
With interest.
with interest.
So we talked about this family structure. I know that obviously there's obviously a massive statistic on childhood success rates and with these different types of family structures, right? One of the things that I want to kind of touch on really quick was the Instagram post that you had sent us, Luna, in our group chat, where they had all these kids line up and he told all of them take 2 steps forward if this statement is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you had, two parents in the home, if dad was present in the home, if you never had to worry about where your next meal was coming from, if you had opportunity for private school, if you had opportunity for tutors, like ask a bunch of these different questions. Obviously, a lot of black and brown students were still at the start,
Yep.
right? Because they didn't have access to these things. Again, these when we talk about some of these things, we all say these all are things that are based on social systems, right? Cultural systems, good, bad, or indifferent. However somebody is in that particular system, right? They just in that particular system. I want to ask the question for those individuals that are in those systems that have been able to see those progressions, whether it be mom, dad, sister, brother, niece, nephew, cousins, uncles, whatever, right? That has shown you some kind of progression, whether they were close knit in the family or this was a far off relative. Do you feel, do either one of you guys feel, one, when we talk about raising children, are we raising children to fit into systems or are we raising children to change systems?
I go ahead, Loma.
Nah, you got it. You already opened your mouth. Go ahead, bro.
Um, well, first, let me address that weed thing. I don't know what everybody else doing, but we, we, we,
We.
yeah, on this pod, we all working with children to change systems.
Facts.
So that's why we having this conversation because we clearly have taken a step back to recognize the system itself. A lot of people don't even recognize that they're operating within a system. This would be a new conversation for a lot of people. So until you able to actually step back and recognize that, how can you teach a child otherwise? So we are absolutely from day one. I talk about this. My children, since they were born, I did not allow people to Google Gaga my babies, my own mama. I said, don't baby talk my children. I was like, I always talk to them, talk normal to them. Steve, I used to carry them everywhere with me. Uh, and you know what that did once they got into school? All I heard, even when they was in elementary school, man, your son has
Vocabulary was ridiculous.
vocabulary is just like amazing for his age. And your daughter, the way she talks and the conversations she has, they just always impressed. They always stood out amongst their peers.
Hmm.
Um, But that started at home with how I trained them. Like I always had conversations about what was going on. Even the conversation we're having now, I've been having with my kids since they were smaller. They teenagers now. But it's a lot of conversations that they can sit with us and have. I can bring them on this pod and they can rock and roll
Absolutely. Absolutely.
in depth. And you'll be like, how old are y'all again?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, but that was
Cause
instilled in them early.
Leia how you thinking.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, yeah, she'll take you
Yeah,
down a
you thinking.
hole. But yeah, it's you got to start early, and these things you have to recognize yourself, and you can raise your children to change the system. You can absolutely do that, but you have to recognize the systems first.
Coach Luna, you want to add something to that, or did he knock this one out the park?
I mean, his answer was pretty much spot on because all I kept thinking was you can't recognize one that's raised from the system and always is still believing and doing everything that's in the system is just going to simply raise another one that's going to be in the system. But that one, just like Neo, can find his way, and one little thing can deviate from like, hold on, that made me think a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you start getting to questioning. And that's why I appreciate questioning. And, I learned this. God appreciates questioning.
Yeah, man.
Because
Timeless, right?
how do you know that you're in a bad system? And how do I know that my foundation is trash if I'm not starting to look and wondering why, why is this brick missing or why is that there? You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? How did that get there?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I gotta start digging a little bit. Now I'll start seeing things. Well, this isn't supposed to be there. That's not supposed to be that way.
So you made me think of a question while you just said that when you were making this comment or when you make that statement. So, Coach Luna, I have to ask you now: how much of our loyalty to systems is based on comfort versus fact?
I think a lot of it's based on comfort. I think
Mhm.
majority of it's based on comfort because again, it kind of ties back to what you said earlier about with like seeing someone close to you do it differently and
Mm-hmm.
then seeing the fruits of that tree. And not a lot of people are trying to buck the system. Not a lot of people, especially when they get into their 30s, not a lot of people are trying to go ahead and find ways to elevate themselves mentally, physically, or spiritually. A lot of people put a bow on their lives 35 years before their casket closed.
Mm.
I think a lot of
Mm.
people try to say job well done and leave so much meat on the bone. And I literally had to start thinking about that for myself. When I tell y'all, bro, November 11th changed my perspective so freaking much because I literally started looking at my life and I said, if my casket was to close, where's my relationship with God and what have I done? Really, what all have I done? Yeah, I've helped a lot of kids. I've done a lot more, but I want more for my family. I want the absolute most that I can possibly muster to put my family in a different stratosphere. I want to lead my family into the path that God literally put in my heart to say, hey, we need to be following this way. We need to only be going this way. And if I'm comfortable with where I'm at as a man, how am I going to muster the energy and create the energy and fulfill the capacity that is being asked of me if I'm not pushing myself? I had this analogy earlier because for some reason I knew this question was going to get asked. And I had this analogy. A lot of us are confused progress. No, we confuse busyness with progress.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of us are just like we're moving our arms. I can sit here and I can move my arms all day, right? I'm not gonna get 13.76 miles. No matter what, how many times I move my arms, I'm not gonna get 13.76 miles by just moving my arms. We confuse busyness with progress. So we fulfill ourselves with just doing stuff and not realizing that nothing that got done today was actually fulfilling. And I really do feel in my heart of hearts that's a huge issue with the family dynamic of the grind or the grind mindset is we just doing a lot of nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
grind should be the maximum level of effort within the amount of allotted time with the amount of impact that's trying to be created. Do you get what I'm saying? And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of the time we just say, "Man, I've been grinding, doing what? Man, I've been doing so and so for like 9 hours. Took 9 hours. You probably could have shrunk that down into two, and then you probably had those seven
If
hours to get some other things.
if
You got to find your methods of efficiency, but you're not gonna find. It's not just gonna fall in your lap. Nothing is gonna fall in your lap. That's one thing my mom, if you ever go in, she's a very passionate woman, and she will tell your ass straight up if you are a lazy person. It's very similar to how Revelation, like if you gonna spit you out like lukewarm. That's my mom with lazy people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to hear your complaints and you're lazy.
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Those two things don't they cannot coexist. You either gonna make a move or shut up.
So I know your answer to this next question then, but I'm gonna give this to Coach Wash then, because based on your system of upbringing, I know your answer. I know Coach Wash's answer too, but I want to hear this one. So can true change in a system, can that happen from within the system, or will that change happen when something devastating happens and requires the system to be rebuilt?
You pretty much you asking if we've ran into a virus situation and if we need to reboot
Right.
and
Right.
introduce some malware.
Right.
Um, yeah, a lot of times the cage got to get rattled.
Facts.
It has to. I mean, that's scriptural too.
Who can do the rattling though? Is that going to be internal or is that something that's done externally?
The rattling, that's external.
But you feel it
You
internally.
feel it internally, but the rattling would be externally.
We
But
picking up what you're putting down.
we are prepared and built for it. It always will come back to your choice. How do you choose to respond to the rattle? It's the red and the blue pill all day. Like I showed you this. Uh, now it's a matter of
You're
what
doing
you're
something
gonna
with it,
do.
right?
I showed you enough to realize that you do have a choice. It ain't just this.
This makes me remember the man in the water, right?
Mhm.
Praying to God, asking him to save him. He
Yeah,
sent the boat, sent the plane, sent all kinds of stuff for him, and he's still praying to God right now. So
end up in heaven.
exactly, standing at the gates, like, what happened? So with that question, so in that same scenario, that same mindset, are some people born into systems that they can never escape?
Are they born into systems they can never escape? No.
So
I
you're telling me the mindset of somebody holding me down, somebody keeping me from doing, somebody stopping me from getting, somebody prohibiting me from going is not a real thing. Is that what you're saying?
How much power are you giving yourself versus what you think is holding you back? Which
Mm,
one are you? Which one are you gonna feed?
mm. Which beast are you gonna feed, right?
I will
I can easily just go ahead and say, man, yeah, you got it. You know what I'm saying? But which one you gonna feed? If you're gonna feed that, then you're gonna get that. But if you're
Yeah,
gonna feed the one that says, "Hey, I can take you out of the wilderness and completely change you," lean into that one. I promise you, you will.
yeah. Yeah, that was a setup, Steve. That was the Kanye question right there, right? That's the slavery
To throw
question.
one of them in there, right?
But I will say, to an extent, I still, I know Kanye wasn't in his right mind, but I do feel like you do have a choice to how you're going to live and what you're going to accept. So regardless of the extremities of the system that you're born into, um, how are you going to combat it? Because I look at it this way. It's funny because I was talking with bro today, and he had his surgery last week on his knee, and he just talked about. He's like, man, he's just rattling on and on about how challenging this is, and he keep referencing me. He's like, man, bro, I just got another level of empathy, and like this ain't nowhere near where you were. You were younger. I was just like, I said, honestly, bro, once I got to a point where, the doctor's goal was like for you to walk again. That was the goal, like for me to walk again. My goal was to be an athlete again. So in my mind, when rehab was over, they felt like they did their job. In my mind, if all y'all wanted me to do was walk again, I'm about to go all the way
Hamburger.
in. And
That's it.
if something goes south, it
Hamburger.
goes south. But I know how I'm not gonna live. I'm
Facts.
not gonna live just walking and not giving myself an opportunity when I know I got some gas in the tank to get where I want to go. And I can at least say that I went all in trying to get to where I wanted to go. And I think even with those extremities and those tough systems, it's kind of like I look at it the same way. Well, I'm just gonna die fighting because I know I'm probably gonna die anyway. Why not fight? Or why not get into prayer? I'm gonna pray my way up into heaven if I'm finna leave up out of here. Like I'm
Mhm.
praying and fighting. Like I'm gonna do what I can. You holding me down. I'm crying to God. The You know what I'm saying? Like you have to choose how you're going to deal with whatever you've been put into.
So, Steve, I think as a society, the there's too much comfort erring to the side of negativity. And what I mean by that is we give too much glory to like our pitfalls. And we don't put enough glory on what it was that helped us out and got
Mhm.
us out of that.
Mhm.
And I feel like the better job we can do to spotlight the things that got us out of those things that got us out of those pitfalls, I feel like if we do a better job of spotlighting who, the how, the what, we won't be so comfortable with being in those dark spaces and just being like, man, it's part of the game. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
I think we feed negativity too much, bro, as a society. I feel like people just it's there's a darkness that's just like
Well,
consumed, bro.
They're
Like
dark
it's
cloud.
easily accepting negativity. Where
that's perfect way to put it, bro.
that's the pat that's to be expected, right? Like
Right.
I've heard so many times like somebody interview for a job, saying that this is a job that they really, really wanted to get, but because of my luck, because of who I am, because of how things always happen for me, I am not gonna get something like that. I'm gonna still apply because it's like the lottery, right? You ain't gonna win if you don't play, right? So I'm gonna at least throw my application in there. But I'm already going in with the mindset that I'm not gonna get the job because that's always been my mindset. And
Yeah, man.
and I want to take this back to something that hit me real hard last month when we started talking because we're in Corinthians now. We were in Romans, right? And in
Yeah,
Romans 12, well, I know you're
I'm in
not.
John.
You're in John now. Sorry. Sorry. In Romans 12, right? It said Romans 12:2. It said, "Do not conform to the patterns of this
Of this
world,
world.
but be conformed by the renewing of what? Your mind."
Yeah.
So this gets you to kind of break that cycle,
Mm, that's
your
good.
personal cycle, get you to break your cycle so that you can start seeing that there's more options out there for you. There's a better opportunity out there for you. So I want to take this real quick to more to the office because I hear this more often than not. The the mindset that I'm always gonna be in this position. I'm never gonna grow. I'm never gonna be I want to be CEO. I'm never going to be CEO. I'm never going to be this. I'm never going to be that. I'm always going to be a grunt worker. I'm always going to be this. That mindset, where do you think a lot of that mindset stems from? Do you think that's a cultural mindset? Do you think that's a family mindset? Is that a family system mindset that's put in place? I didn't see
Um,
anybody in my family be able to grow like
I,
that. I
I
haven't
I
seen people
think
around me be able to grow like that. Where do you think
it's a
that comes
few
from?
places it can come from though. It's a few different systems it can come from. It can come from home, but a lot of times we see cases where home appears to be good, but they chose to be more influenced by the environment outside of the home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and parents don't have a grip. You know, they're doing everything they can to talk to the child, but the internet is the influence for the child or the adult. I'll say a child, but I'm speaking it's because a lot of adults are like children at this point. We just said we can't see a difference, but I think it could be one of a few different systems to where stems from. I think a lot of people are drawing their negativity from social media today, and they feed on it. And misery loves company, and it's part of the it's cultural now. You know what I'm saying? I see it with the kids. They're actually finding acceptance in having a label. Oh, I got
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, or I'm dyslexic. Like that's like it's almost lame to not have a mental problem. But you don't have a S next to your
You got
name.
something? Right. Right.
Like you're not sped. I'm sped. Like they brag about this stuff. I'm sped. And like that's becoming a cultural norm that I'm seeing. I would say these days, I think it's outside the home. And it in the like Luna said earlier, where's the foundation? We can't find the foundation. And without it, if it wasn't established at home to step back and train outside of the system to go against the system, then they definitely not gonna find an alternate once they dive deep into the system of what's culturally accepted today. And so that's that negativity.
Hmm. I want to. I think we should go. I think we have so many different areas that we need to talk about. Because now you just gave me like four more questions. Um. So I want to go back to the example that Luna gave with seeing an example that's close proximity. So seeing an example that's in close proximity, why do you think that there are, for lack of better words, that leveling gap sometimes, even with our siblings or even with people that are in our family that are close in proximity that can see those same type of examples? Why do you think there's sometimes even leveling gaps there where they may not, they're in the same system, the same social construct that you're in,
Hmm.
but they don't see the system the same way that you see the system, or they see it much differently than how you see the system. So how can we be in the same social construct, the same family construct, and see the system totally different?
We're still individuals at the end of the day.
Yeah,
God,
and exposure.
yeah.
I think the more you expose yourself to different systems, there you can somewhat kind of create your own formula for efficiency. You know, Coach Steve, pre-show you and I talked about um the book, the 10X rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about my example with the run, how I wanted 15.52 miles. I really did, but I ended up running 13.76, which was my personal longest with my distance and time, which was at the end of the day, that's something I can go ahead and be like, well, I still did better. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
I can still pat myself on the back, but I still didn't get my 15.52. So I still got work to do, right? And I think there's a lot in that belief because it kind of has to rewire your brain with how you think about um, the goals that you might set in place. And, you know, it's very similar to what we talked about with, you know, you want to set almost unrealistic goals because you know that if I can even get close to that unrealistic goal, what I actually thought I could really get, I actually went way past that.
Absolutely. I'm
And
glad.
we're always are going to default our goals to the level that we've always performed to. We're always just going to try to get our best again, but we don't try to get better than best. And that is the issue with a lot of us. And I feel like that's kind of the issue with the person that you talked about that's trying to get to that CEO position.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also got to question what kind of position you are in and what does it leveling up in from that position even look like. For me, for example, I'm a PE coach. Like, what is the leveling up for me going to end up looking like? I've already been a DC at a high school level. I've already been a special teams coordinator. If I wanted to go ahead and try to continue that path to be a head coach, could I probably do it? Yes. But that would require me to change my priorities again. And what God has placed on my heart does not align with doing that again.
Right.
Not right now. And I don't think he's gonna want me to do that again. In my heart of hearts, go that route again because of how much I neglected my time with him. And I don't, like I said, man, I really do believe that God will not give you a life where he's not included. If he's not
That's,
included, it
yeah,
wasn't from him.
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up because when you talked about 10xing your goals, I think a lot of times for a lot of people, we we choose the wrong goal. We may choose the wrong let me rephrase that. We probably choose the right goal. We choose in the wrong time. So
Or
I'll
the
give you
wrong measurement.
exactly. So I'll
Yeah.
give you a perfect example of that. Like there's times and I'll use this one example. I have a friend of mine who is trying to work on a project. And as she's working on this project, she's running into a lot of pitfalls. And one of the things that we did was she called me one day and she's like, I'm stuck. I don't know where to go from here. Like I made it from A, B, C, and D. I don't know how to get to E, F, G, right? How do I make these next things kind of line up? Well, work it backwards, bro. And there it is. There it is. Let's talk about the goal, right? Like what are we trying to do? If the goal is to do this, okay, well, how do we get to this? Let's break this down. What do we need to get to this? Okay, we need these three sub acts right here. These three subs here are going to help us get to this. And as we start breaking this goal down, we started seeing that we could probably fix like nine other things if we did these steps the same exact way and broke it down from G to A, as opposed to going from A to G, right? Sometimes it's easier to see that goal and break those things down into smaller segments and get way more accomplished than you probably ever thought you would in the beginning.
There's more to that.
Please.
Collaboration.
Absolutely.
Sometimes collaboration is needed for you to have a more efficient system.
We are not designed to just act. We are designed to act, not just adapt. I meant. So a lot of us, we spend a lot of times in the adapting phase, but no action behind the adapting. How many times have you been at work, they change a policy or a procedure, and you just got to go with it, but you ain't really going with it? I need everybody when you send these faxes over, make sure these cover sheets are on there, these particular cover sheets, and you don't do it, right? Or you take the little shortcut here and there. Like there's a reason in which why they have us do certain things the way that we have them doing. We just don't do them sometimes because we kind of miss those steps. I challenge anybody right now. I want you to think of a problem that you are currently facing right now. Think of a problem that you have. Write the problem down. Like literally write the problem down and then write what needs to happen to solve the problem. But don't be general. Like if the goal is to make, 100K by in 6 months, how do we make that? Like what is it going to take? It ain't just obviously just working at the job. There's going to be a lot more work that has to be compounded to get to that point. So what work has to be done to get to that point? Start working your problems backwards. I cannot tell you the power it is in just writing the problem down. Some of us don't even get to that part. And if we just get to that part, there's so much power in just seeing the words, just seeing where
Proactive.
you are. Yep.
It's proactive versus reactive.
100%. 100%.
Foresee the issues and already have the solutions in place if those issues arise, instead of not thinking about the issues that could arise and then having to react to the issues.
I know we touched on this for a minute. We kind of touched on this, but we didn't dive too deep into this. Luna, you alluded to a lot of this already. But when do you think obedience to a system becomes dangerous? Because you right now are in a system right now working out.
When it becomes a detriment to you and the ones that you say you love.
Give me give me
That's when I believe your obedience to the system is a problem. For example, my obedience to football, my obedience to being a football coach within the current state of the culture of coaching was very toxic for my health, very toxic for the balance of my relationship with my wife, um, very toxic for heck even my mental health.
hmm
Um, I mean, the list can go on and on and on. Like since the day I've stopped coaching high school football, I've lost 40 pounds. Since the day I stopped coaching high school football, I'm in the best spiritual place I've been in my life. From the day I stopped coaching high school football, I went ahead and am I going to go ahead and say it was just high school football? No, but the obedience to that system didn't allow me to have the time in other areas to reflect and see how much I was neglecting the other areas of my life. Does that make sense? And
Absolutely.
I think that obedience to whatever system it may be. And I think a lot of it, especially in our cultural society right now, a lot of our biggest issues stem from obedience to the system of our workplace.
Mm.
And it's hard to manage the disconnection that's needed from when you leave the workspace and come to your home space. A lot of us carry that over, and it's gotten so much, even it's even more of an issue now because there's not the level of comfort or cushion, I guess, as you could say, financially that we used to have from working. And then you would be like, oh, you know what, maybe I could take a few days off. You take a few days off right now, you ain't gonna have no money for the first. You know what I'm saying? So like
Mm-hmm.
there's the strain that is put on people right now is even a bigger issue for people to even think about reflecting and thinking about a lot of the things that we're currently, we're blessed to have able to have this retrospect throughout the years and having these times to talk. But a lot of people aren't even fathoming the idea of taking a step back and slowing down a little bit just to think like, man, is this how obedient am I to the things I'm supposed to be obedient to compared to what I'm currently truly mostly obedient to?
You know, it's funny because you hit something that definitely hit home with me. We talked about having that tie essentially to the job. There was a point in time where my job, I literally felt like I had a ball and chain on my leg for this job. Like
So and that's a norm for a lot of
that's
people, man.
exactly. And that when you said when I asked the question, like when do you feel like is like doing you the most harm, right? Like why do people defend systems? Because I was definitely guilty of it. I would tell my wife all the time, like I have to do this, like I have to do this, like I gotta do this. We go on vacation. I brought my laptop. I have to do this, right? If I don't do this, these are the consequences of these things not happening, right? Providing us that sense of identity or that sense of control, even when it came at a price.
Because we naturally have a yearn for greatness. Even in those moments, your obedience to your employer, you're striving to be great and seen as great in the eyes of your employer so that you can try to hopefully get that promotion that you don't even realize what you're doing
On the other side of it.
on the other side of it.
Yep.
But again, that goes back to what we talked about in previous pods, the characteristics. The characteristic of being goal driven, the characteristic of being kind of a little bit crazy as far as how dedicated you are to your craft, those are great characteristics to have. Not everybody has them. One can consider those things as talents.
Mm-hmm.
We might need to redirect them.
Right.
It's not a
Somewhere else,
bad
right?
thing. Exactly. It's not a bad thing that you were dedicated or consistent or any of those things, but maybe it's just not in the right space. Don't lose those characteristics, transfer the characteristics. Highlight the spots that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
What got you out of there? Those characteristics are what got you out of there. Who gave you those characteristics? How do you nurture those characteristics? And how do you know which way to go?
Man, it's painful to stay in those type of situations. It's painful to stay in those type of systems, even when you know they're detrimental to everyone around you. And you've
Mm-hmm.
seen how they've been detrimental to everybody around you. I heard I heard one of my old coaches said this a long time ago. He said um we were working out in the weight room one day and one of the kids had just did his PR on the squat rack and hurting, hurting. My man was I think he put up like 275, 375. So he was hurting. Coach walks over there. He on the O line. Coach walks over to him and says like, put another 15 on there. He was like, coach, like I'm hurting, yo. Like I'm hurting. Coach told him sometimes we gotta stay loyal to pain because that's the only thing that ever stays with us. The weight room got quiet. Like we have to stay loyal to pain. What do you mean we have to stay loyal to pain? I never really understood what he meant by that. Like staying staying in the furnace, essentially, staying in the fire. And how much hardened you become staying in the fire. Again, being in the forge, right? We talk about being in the forge. Going through that process is a painful, long, daunting process. But what comes out of it at the end of it? A beautiful piece of art, right? So the way that I had looked at, working all those hours when I was in the role that I was in, it was I knew that there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that there was going to be, fruit from my labor at the end of the tunnel, And it wasn't necessarily in a promotion. It was more so in like if I can get these other people to understand the big picture, they can start helping to drive the process. They can start helping to push the process. They can start helping to groom the process. And then it's not just on me, it's on all of us at that point. So it was like I knew where I was spending the time, but being in the process, being in the system, and initially not seeing the outcome because I didn't write down all the goals. I didn't write all those things down. I didn't, reverse engineer it for myself to make it a little bit easier for myself. It was massively overwhelming and massively painful. This is what I'm saying. Like, there's definitely lessons to be learned in taking those times and reverse engineering your problems and reverse engineering what you're trying to get to. Because again, you may end up reaching a goal that you weren't necessarily trying to reach, and you end up reaching six other goals that just happen out of osmosis. So I know we touched on this already. I know we talked about this when we talked about, um, does our systems required to be destroyed so that they can be recreated, rebuilt, better, stronger, faster, so on and so forth. Some systems can evolve. Some family systems can evolve, like breaking
I'd say
generational coaches,
I'm about to
curses,
say
right?
God believes so. He did at the days of Noah.
That's all. Right, exactly, exactly. I was like, we can
Oh.
take this to the spiritual realm. So, yep.
I
Go right. Go.
mean,
Go ahead, coach.
he already told us he gonna hit reset again soon. So yeah,
So there needs to be a time to reset, a time to break
once
down.
once it becomes detrimental to you and the ones you love. So even think about that further with the example we just taught. This was detriment. This current society is detrimental to his children.
yeah.
So what's going to be required?
Hmm.
Didn't try to leave it very solemn there, but it's
Yeah,
the truth.
you did. You absolutely did. You absolutely did. This is one of them again. We have to go back and dissect this a little bit more because there's so many other systems that we didn't touch on because we didn't
Oh,
touch
bro,
on
this can go.
this and
This can be a
going.
17-part series with
You
this.
never lied. You never lied. You never
I'm,
lied. What
so
were you saying, Coach?
this is nah. I was about to say this is a good overview of uh, the mindset that has got us in the systems, but also plenty of things to think about to try to get ourselves out of these systems.
I think we need to have somebody on the pod that's been able to come out that has come from we've had a ton of guests on that have come from um a difficult system in some way, shape, or form, whether it be a family system, a cultural system, or whatever the case may be. I want to poll the listeners out there right now. I want you guys to think about a system that you stayed in too long. What's a system that you stayed in for too long and why? What did you think about that? Is there a system that you, whether your family system, your work system, right? Don't say government because we all stuck in that. We all gonna be in that for a while, unless you plan on leaving the country. Uh, so I want you to think about a system that you stayed in for too long, and why did you stay in that system? What was the reason for being in that system as long as you did? Was you were you comfortable? Was it a financial gain out of that system? Was there some other gain that you were looking for out of that system? What kept you wrapped up in that particular system and why that long, right? Want to kind of poll the listeners out there. Briefly, before we close out, Coach Wash, Coach Luna, what were some systems that you guys stayed in way too long that probably needed to be exited out a long time ago, but because of your stubbornness, you stayed in the system longer than you should have?
Partying, partying, way too much. Because what ended up happening is partying blended into family time. It blended into times with my friends that it literally, if drinking wasn't involved, it didn't feel like it was a time.
Mm,
You get what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
And when it has got to that point to where it's like, damn, I need a drink to be around my family. I need a drink to be around my friends. Like
Mm-hmm.
I got to get belligerent. I got to get to a point where I'm like drunk to manage and feel okay around here. Like I got to question what's going on with me. I'm not gonna question them because I'm the one putting this to my lips, and I'm the one that's consuming this, and I'm the one that's got to wake up with this hangover, and I'm the one that's got to deal with this urge in me to be like, this something's not right. You know what I'm saying? And when you have that, you got to respond. And for the longest, I felt like I didn't want to respond, and but I did respond, and my response was just drink more,
Mm-hmm.
just drink more. You know, the further you go down the bottle, the less you'll hear. But it just felt worse the next day, and it felt heavier every single time to the point where the burden just felt way too heavy. And when you finally get to that point where that your shoulders are just like overbearing and you just feel like the weight of the the stupid decisions, the weight of the the feel like this doggone liquid literally has had a control on me, has had a control on my family, has had a control on my father, has had a control on so many men that I know that I cherished in my life. This doggone bottle, this little itty bit of liquor, has wrecked so much. And who am I and what am I? What legacy am I going to leave if I just repeat and expect a different result?
Mm-hmm.
Because if his spirit dwells within all of us, dwelled within those men at that same time too. And if I continue to respond the same way that they did, what fool am I to think that the response and the events hereafter are going to be any different? Retrospect only works if you look back to see what has happened. Pride is what makes you think is going to change the outcome. The systems and what happens therefrom ain't gonna change. The outcomes ain't gonna change. The players are different. The results stay the same.
Facts. Facts. I think it comes down to, again, just like you said, knowing how to navigate your systems, just the systems of your life, right? Being aware of what systems are in control of you, being able to challenge systems that don't necessarily serve you, finding ways to maybe create new systems for yourself and empower others to start creating new systems. And I think probably the most important what we talked about today, and Coach Wash, you said this, which this is a nice little alley oop to you, sir. Um, don't accept systems, question systems, right? Be okay questioning systems. Coach Wash, close us out, sir.
Oh man. System that I stayed in too long. The ungodly.
Hmm.
Um,
Context,
my
sir.
hmm,
Need some context behind that.
tolerance, acceptance to the point of indulgence. The system of anything outside of being God's child. Encompasses, the vice that Luna just discussed. I was heavy there too. Uh, Smoking, all this stuff is just gateways and it leads to more sin. And whatever your sin or your vice of choice. Some of y'all don't like the word sin, vice, sin, whatever you want to call it.
Same basket, bro.
Same basket. It just leads to more. And so that's why I just sum it up with ungodly. Um, yeah, that system that involves the party and just the environments, the people that's heavy in it. And when you know better, you should do better, you know. But the system of turning your back on God, that's worse than not knowing them. It was worse to know them and then proceed.
Still. Yep.
Yeah. That system, I mean, honestly, just full of vulnerability. I still, even with where I'm at in my walk today, uh, it's still a challenge to kind of get over it myself. Not get over it like stop, because that is done, but get over the fact that I accepted, tolerated, and indulged for so long. When I'm better than that. I'm better
Hmm.
today. I'm new. I'm getting dipped back in the water this Sunday. I'm getting baptized again. But yeah, man.
Congratulations, bro.
Thank you. But yeah, that too much time. Too much time. Way too much time. Far too much time. I think even with that is getting to the point of indulgence is to be expected, but like just tolerating so much. I always been too tolerant, but I always felt like I can help people too. Sometimes there's people that you should just kind of like, as Luna say, we and our word says spread the seeds and keep moving. Spread the seeds. It's up to God to change the heart. It's like, um, yeah, I kind of referenced this myself before. We had a pod talking about. I said, as an example, I was like, yeah, if you're gonna lead people, you don't go down to their level to get them out of that spot or that place. You be an example, but you don't become to save because you just end up drowning with them. But yeah,
Can't pull nobody up when you're on their level.
yeah,
You can only pull them to you. And if you
yeah,
guys on the same level, ain't nobody
yeah.
moving.
All I can do is throw you a rope.
But it is. It
I ain't
is.
jumping down there.
You know what? It's beauty in that too, because for a lot of us that understand the detriment of jumping down to go and help, knowing that I can't swim, right?
Mhm.
I got out of the water because I couldn't swim. I know
Yeah.
somebody probably gonna throw a little comment in the pod in the chat about being black and not being able to swim.
My
All right, I'm
bone
Mexican. I can't
density.
swim.
Fallacy. So it's a fallacy, okay?
I
Fallacy.
actually got the bone density that David Goggins was talking about in his book. For anybody that read it, if I was going through those tests, I would have been just like him. I
Yeah,
will sink with a life vest on.
there
Swear
it
to God,
is. There it is.
I
There
do
it
not
is.
float. So there's some truth
So
for that in this black man.
little bit of
So
truth, just a little bit. Not all of us, just a little bit of truth. I can't swim, so
I
we'll just
got
put it out
some I
there too.
wrote though.
But yes, that again is that's the point. That's the whole point right there. Again, if nope, you got some work to do, bro. You got some work to do. We can't conclude this until you go ahead and drop this piece that we got. Is this
I,
new?
can I just talk? Yeah, it's something new.
I was gonna say this is new.
Yeah, I'm just gonna talk this out. Lord, I'm coming to you, open face, open palms, open arms. I need a hug. World is evil, show me love. Spirit come from David. This my book of Psalms. I'm writing songs that'll bless me long. Right my wrongs. Solomon, he got it out the mud. Hit the tub, clean my soul. Bust them suds, need extra scrubs. I knew the move, the room was bud. Thank you, Lord, for lasting love. Well equipped, God's armor, know the script. On my shoulder, wear a chip. Jesus had the tables flipped. Stand on biz, we ain't taking this. Pop said, I got it, son. The battle's won. Go lock your gun. Vengeance mine, the evil's done. I am is the only one.
Boss,
I am is the only one.
boss, boss, boss.
All right. What is your name?
I am.
That's right.
There it is. There it is. Again, if you like what you heard, smack that like subscribe button if you want to hear more from your Coach Life fam. Guaranteed there's probably going to be a pod two on this one, a part two on this one.
Absolutely.
Think we're gonna have to go into a little bit deeper conversation on this one. Probably bring some guests on this one. Thinking Sean and Braylon probably have some really good perspective on this one. And you said you had another special guest for us too, Luna. So I'm excited to see if you can pull that one off because I would love to hear that perspective. I'm pretty sure everybody out there would love to hear that as well. Again, if you like what you heard, smack that like subscribe button if you want to hear more. Again, hit that merch if you want to go ahead and get yourself some of them hoodies, some of them some nice hoodies, some of them those nice CLP shirts. I know we got a couple of those coming soon, right?
You got some designs,
I
yeah.
know I was gonna say I know some new designs are out right now or should be coming out soon. So I'm excited about that. Some of we're gonna be fire, bro. I'm
That's
excited
what
for
it's
this.
for. It's for summertime shy and H Town.
I need this workout gear, bro. I need this workout gear. I need the workout gear, bro. I want a bag. Can you make a bag?
Lord Jesus.
We'll get to that
Let
later.
me
We'll
get to
get to that
work.
later. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of work to do, bro. Again, you like we heard, smack that like subscribe button. Until the next time, family. Stay positive, my friends.